Well, throughout all the years I've been cooking on television, I've had lots of little campaigns going, and my latest campaign is to the young people of Britain to tell you not to let us forget about the tradition of making lovely hot puddings in this country, because we do make the best in the world. They're not as good in Europe, they're not as good anywhere else in the world as they are here, and it would be such a shame to miss this wonderful tradition, especially in the winter when it's really cold and you need the sort of comfort food that a hot pudding will give you. Well, this is a programme with hot puddings, and the first one I'm going to show you is probably one of the best of all ever. This is called Sussex Pond pudding, and originally it was a whole lemon suspended in a suet pastry that gave off juices, lots of buttery juices, when it was served and sort of sat in a pond. Well, that's a beautiful pudding, but what I've done is adapt it into little individual Sussex Pond puddings. So I hope you're going to like it. We're going to start off now with making a suet pastry, which we haven't done on How to Cook, so it's a good opportunity. You start off with 4 ounces of self-raising flour, well sifted, holding the sift high, into a bowl. And then we've got 3 ounces of shredded beef suet that's going to go in with the flour, and behind the suet, which is going to lighten the pudding, is 2 ounces of breadcrumbs made from a day-old loaf. And then, because this is going to be a very lemony pudding, what we're going to do is put the grated zest of a lemon in the pastry itself. And then, to make a suet pastry, there's no rubbing in, it's the easiest one in the whole world. You just take a little palette knife, and then you just start to mix the ingredients together. And then, still using the palette knife, you add the liquid. Now the liquid I'm going to use is 2 ounces of milk and 2 ounces of water. I might not need it all because flour does vary, but I'm going to start off with pouring in about half of that, and then just mixing with my palette knife until you sort of feel the dough coming together, getting a bit claggy, as you can see there now. Not claggy enough though, so we'll go in with a little bit more liquid. And then, when we're almost there, just go in with your hands and bring the whole thing together to a normal dough, and just keep going until you've got no crumbs left in the bottom of the bowl. And I've still got a few crumbs left, so just a little touch more liquid, not a lot, just a few drops. That's it. And now that is suet pastry. Couldn't be easier, don't need any skill at all for that. So what we're going to do now is just get rid of the bowl and flour the board ready for rolling the pastry out. And if it's a bit raggedy, you might just need to sort of give it a little bit of a knead to get it smooth enough to roll. Now, because we're going to make 6 little Sussex Pond puddings, I'm going to divide the pastry into 6 pieces, so in half first, and then each half into 3. And then we're going to start by rolling out the first 6th, and I'm just going to take a little bit off there for the lid, and then use this bit to line my pudding basin. These are the little pudding basins, and they're really very well buttered. And now we're just going to flour the rolling pin. What we need to do with that is roll it out to a round that will fit the basin. Just quarter turns to keep it round, and then in it goes into the basin like that, and it just has to line the basin and then slightly overlap the edges, which is where we're going to fix the lid on. It's quite thin, this pastry, but it does actually puff up while it's cooking, so it becomes bigger. There we are. Now what I'm going to do is just roll out the little lid, which again is going to be quite thin. And then we're going to put the filling in. So I'll just roll out the lid first. And now what the filling is 1 lemon between 6 people and that's divided into 18 slices. So each little pudding gets 3 slices of lemon. And the wonderful thing about this pudding is that you have the rind on the lemon, and this is what gives all the fragrance and flavour while it's cooking. And then we're going to have some other ingredients. First of all, each pudding has a rounded tablespoon of demerara sugar, and each one gets an ounce of butter. And if you're a little bit worried about that, I have to tell you that this is comfort food. It's not meant to be eaten every day, but it is nice once in a while, and we are going to be doing a programme later on Waste Watcher recipes, so we're going to make up for it later on. So damp the edges now of that pastry around the edge, put the little lid on, and then just squeeze it together like that. It doesn't have to be perfect, you just squidge it together, and there you've got your little pudding. Now we're going to put some foil on, little squares of foil like this. What you do is make a pleat in the centre, because it's going to expand a little bit while it's cooking. And then you've got 4 corners, so you just twist each corner like that. And now it's going to be cooked, it's going to be steamed for 2 hours. And if you were with me on the first programme, we talked about steamers. This is the old-fashioned pudding steamer, which is used for big puddings, Christmas puddings, but you can also put 6 of these in. So what happens now is the little puddings are stacked up in the steamer. The saucepan is filled about 3/4 full with simmering water, and it mustn't come off the simmer all the way through the cooking, so just keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't. And 2 hours later, you'll have 6 beautiful Sussex Pond puddings. Well, the good thing about steamed puddings is the timing isn't essential. If your guests aren't ready, they don't mind hanging around for an extra 10 minutes. They won't come to any harm. But these have had 2 hours now, so we're just going to have a look and see what they look like. Now, first of all, I'm going to take the steamer off the saucepan, and then inside I've got my little Sussex Pond puddings, and I'm going to take one out and turn it out so you can have a look and see what it's like. So you need a cloth because it's a bit hot. And then off comes the foil. And then just take a palette knife and slide the palette knife around the edge to loosen it. Actually, they're very, very easy to turn out. And then just turn it out onto a plate like that. And you can see all the pond that sort of oozed out of it. Then I'm just going to take a little slice out now. Sometimes they dip a bit in the middle, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to take a little slice out now and just let you have a look at all that lovely lemony juice inside. And if we're going to have a suet pudding and we're going to have butter in it, why not go the whole hog and have some lovely untreated Jersey cream. Comforting puddings are as essential to the British winter as football. And in the restaurants at Norwich City, there's one pudding which is always popular, in the winter or sometimes even in the summer. Well, there are several different types of puddings. The first one is a suet pudding, steamed. This one I'm going to show you is a sponge pudding, which is also steamed. It's actually got lemons in it too, but there's a history behind that. And that is, the actual title of the pudding is Canary pudding. I'm going to make little ones again. But if you think there's some sort of hidden meaning in that, because I'm attached to a football club that are called the Canaries, you're wrong, because it actually is a traditional pudding called Canary pudding. Originally it was made with different types of jam, but what I've done to connect it with the football club, and it's very popular when we serve it there, is I've made it with lemon curd, because canaries are yellow and canary pudding should be yellow too for me. So here we are, canary pudding's a sponge pudding, but it's a sponge pudding that's going to be made in the all-in-one method, which is terribly easy. So I started off with 4 ounces of self-raising flour, a teaspoonful of baking powder, and they've been sifted into the bowl. I'm going to add 4 ounces of golden caster sugar. And then I've got 4 ounces of butter. Now we're going to make this all-in-one sponge, which is very easy, but the secret of success is the butter's got to be really squidgy, like that. You've got to be able to go straight into it. So butter room temperature, you can't get it out of the fridge and mix it up straight away. Then we've got 2 eggs here, so they're going to go in. And here I've got the grated zest of a lemon and a tablespoon of lemon juice. And then I'm going to start off with my whisk on a low speed, just to blend it all together. And then I'm going to switch to a higher speed. And if the butter's soft enough, it all comes together beautifully. Now we'll go up to a top speed now and really get it whipped up. You probably need to beat that for about 1 minute altogether. Now we're using the little pudding basins again for individual canary puddings. So they've been very generously buttered, but this time, because we're having lemon curd in the bottom, I'm going to put a little piece of silicone paper in the base of the basin. And then in the basin, first of all, goes a dessert spoonful of homemade lemon curd. Now I'm going to fill the pudding basin up with sponge mixture. You divide it between 6 of these all together and it sort of comes almost 3/4 full, perhaps a little bit over that. And then what happens to that is the same foil, pleated, twisted at the corners, into the steamer, 6 of them together, and this is much quicker, this one. This is only going to take 25 minutes to cook. And there we have our lovely little canary pudding, which is very, very light, very, very spongy, bouncy. And we have a sauce to go with this, and the sauce is a very simple sauce. It's not custard, although it looks like custard. What it is double cream mixed with water and lemon curd to make a sauce for a canary pudding. And I hope you're going to enjoy that as much as the Canary supporters do. This is another traditional steamed suet pudding, an English apple hat. This time, succulent pieces of Bramley and Cox's apple steamed inside the suet crust. Serve it with proper custard, of course. This has been a British favourite since the 18th century, Spotted Dick. Is it any wonder we won the Battle of Trafalgar? the risk of being boring, I'm going to have to say yet again that this is another great, great pudding. And I think it suffers from not sounding as good as it is. And I think what you've got to do is really taste it to understand its absolute glory. It really is a glorious pudding. It's called Queen of Puddings, good title. And I'm going to show you how to make Queen of Puddings now. And you start off with a pint of milk. And the pint of milk you put into a pan and just bring it up to simmering point and then turn the heat out as soon as it gets up to simmering point. And then I'm going to add 4 ounces of breadcrumbs, and these have been made from a day-old white loaf, and the breadcrumbs need to be quite fine. And then also I'm going to add some sugar, 2.5 ounces of sugar, just half an ounce of butter, which will melt into there, and then the grated zest of a lemon. And then what you do is just mix all of that together until the butter melts, and then it's going to sit for half an hour. It needs to sit for half an hour so that the breadcrumbs in the warm milk have a chance to sort of swell up. Now in the other saucepan, I'm just going to turn the heat under that on, because in there I've got jam. Now, Queen of Puddings is traditionally made with jam. Now, you can use any jam you like. It works very well with the marmalade, especially the homemade one we made. It also works very well with lemon curd. I quite like it with cranberry jelly. I think that's got a nice flavour. But today I'm making it with another favourite, which is Morello cherry jam. They're the bitter cherries, so the jam is not too sweet. And I've got 6 dessert spoons of jam in there. Now, over here, I've got some breadcrumbs that have already been soaked, and the puddings are going to have a meringue on the top. So in that bowl there, I've got the whites of 3 large eggs, and in here I've got the yolks. And the yolks are going to go in with the filling here, so I will put the yolks in, 3 large yolks, and then just give that a little whisk. And then the pudding is made in 2 parts. You cook the bases and then you put the meringue on the top afterwards. Now what you do with that mixture there is you put it into little pudding basins. Now you can make it individually in little basins like this or in ramekins, or I'm going to explain to you now, you can make Queen of Puddings in a dish like this. And this is an oval baking dish, so you can make one big one and spoon it out, but I quite like the individual puddings myself. Now, so what I'm going to do is you spoon in the mixture into the little baking dishes, and what you need is to fill them about 3/4 full. And then they are going to go into a preheated oven, 180 degrees, and they're going to take 25 minutes, and when they come out of the oven, they look like this. They're just kind of set in the centre, as if you were making a quiche or something like that. They're just sort of slightly wobbly and set in the centre. And then, when the jam is warm, what you do then is you put some jam on the top, 1 dessert spoon of jam onto each pudding, like that, and spread it out. And then all it needs now is the meringue to go on the top. So what we'll do now is we'll just whip up the egg whites, put a bit of sugar in, and make the meringue. So off we go. Start with the whisk at its lowest, and then gradually work up, because what you need for meringue is to get air into it. And then as soon as it becomes foamy, put the speed up and we'll finish off. That's it. What we want is it to come up to the stiff peak stage, and then we're going to put 1.5 ounces, gradually whisked in 1.5 ounces of golden caster sugar. we are. Now all you need to do now is divide the meringue between the ramekins, and you just pile the meringue on the top like that, and then it goes back into the oven, same temperature, and you need to give it 10 to 15 minutes cooking, but before you pop them in the oven, just give it a little sprinkling of caster sugar on the top. So they go in the oven 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll get some out in a minute and have a look at them. Right, Queen of Puddings in all their glory, now ready to serve, and I just thought it would be quite nice for me to just take a little piece out, just so that you can just have a look at that lovely, wonderful, light texture inside. That's it, Queen of Puddings.